Stop scrolling. Right now. Look at these four symbols on your screen. The burning heart. Passionate flames consuming everything. The golden chain. Elegant links binding together. The iron rose. Beautiful but thorned and protected. The mirror mask. Reflective and ever-changing. Choose one. Don't overthink it. Your first instinct matters. Your choice reveals your romantic archetype. The unconscious pattern that controls how you love and why your relationships succeed or fail. In 1514, Niccolò Machiavelli wrote private letters about love that historians buried for centuries. He identified 4 romantic archetypes, 4 patterns that determine whether you conquer love or are conquered by it. Comment on your choice now. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Because once you understand your romantic archetype, every relationship you've ever had will suddenly make perfect sense. Let me take you back to 1513. Niccolò Machiavelli had just been exiled from Florence, tortured, stripped of political power. In his isolation, he fell in love with a woman named Barbara Salutati. His letters to her reveal something historians never publicized. Machiavelli applied the same strategic principles to love that he applied to politics. While writing The Prince, his masterpiece on political power, he was privately writing about romantic power. He discovered the same 4 archetypes governing romantic behavior. 400 years later, Carl Jung would call these unconscious romantic patterns. But Machiavelli understood them strategically. Because your romantic archetype determines how you love and how you suffer. Every love strategy has a strength. Every strength creates a vulnerability. Your romantic partners will exploit that vulnerability unless you understand which archetype you embody. In a letter to his friend Francesco Vittori in December 1513, Machiavelli wrote, "Love is a war in which each combatant must understand their weapons or be destroyed by their enemy's knowledge of them. You chose your symbol instinctively. That choice reveals your unconscious love strategy, the pattern you repeat in every relationship without realizing it. We'll decode each archetype, each romantic pattern, each love weapon, and I'll reveal the relationship trap your archetype keeps falling into, and how to escape it. Let's begin. The burning heart, the conqueror. If you chose the burning heart, you are the conqueror. You don't fall in love slowly. You consume and are consumed. When you love completely, obsessively, with an intensity that terrifies people who don't understand it. This isn't a weakness. This is your romantic strategy. Machiavelli himself was the conqueror. In his letters to Barbara, he wrote, "I cannot breathe without thinking of you. I cannot sleep without dreaming of you. You have conquered me completely, and I glory in my defeat." This is your pattern. You pursue love like a military campaign, with singular focus, with overwhelming force, with the belief that total devotion will win total devotion in return. You're Romeo climbing the balcony, Heathcliff crossing the moors, the lover who would burn down the world for the person they desire. In modern terms, you're the person who texts constantly, who wants to see them every day, who plans the future after 3 dates because you know this is it. You love with a certainty that others call crazy. But here's what Machiavelli discovered about the conqueror archetype, and this is the trap that's been destroying your relationships. Intensity that conquers also suffocates. Let me tell you about Machiavelli's own romantic destruction. Barbara Salutati was a singer, beautiful, talented, desired by many men in Florence. Machiavelli pursued her with the same intensity he pursued political power. He wrote to her daily, sent gifts constantly, composed poetry, arranged for musicians to serenade her. He was relentless, and initially, It worked. She was flattered, intrigued. She began corresponding with him. But within months, she pulled away. Why? In a brutally honest letter to his friend Vittori, Machiavelli wrote, "I have loved her too much. My passion, which I thought would bind her to me, has instead become a chain she desperately wishes to escape. I conquered her interest, but suffocated her desire." This is the conqueror's trap. Your intensity, your greatest weapon, becomes oppressive when sustained too long. What starts as "wow, they love me so much" becomes "I can't breathe." What starts as "they're so passionate" becomes "they're so needy." What starts as "this intensity is exciting" becomes "this intensity is exhausting." You give everything, but everything is too much. Your partners start to feel like they're drowning in your love instead of swimming in it. But here's the strategic adaptation Machiavelli discovered, and this is what separates conquerors who keep love from conquerors who lose it. Burn in waves, not continuously. Your intensity is your power, but power applied constantly becomes oppression. You must learn to withdraw strategically, to create space intentionally, to let your partner miss you instead of escape you. After Barbera, Machiavelli had other romantic relationships, and he adapted his strategy. He would pursue intensely, but then disappear for days, write passionate letters, but then go silent, arrange elaborate dates, but then be mysteriously busy. His later lovers began to pursue him. They wondered where he was, worried they'd lost his interest, started competing for his attention. The intensity remained, but it became intermittent, and intermittent intensity creates addiction instead of suffocation. In modern psychological terms, this is called intermittent reinforcement, the most powerful pattern for creating sustained desire. Casinos use it, social media uses it, and strategic lovers use it. If you're the conqueror, here's your adaptation. When you feel the urge to text them for the 5th time today, don't. Let them wonder about you. When you want to plan every weekend for the next month, don't. Leave space for spontaneity and longing. When you want to say, "I love you" every hour, don't. Make those words rare so they remain powerful. In a later letter to Vittori, Machiavelli wrote, "I have learned that love maintained is love that sometimes retreats. The general who is always on the battlefield exhausts his troops. The lover who is always available exhausts desire." The conqueror's law. Pursue powerfully, retreat strategically. If you chose the burning heart, if you felt drawn to it because you are that intensity, then comment below. I am the conqueror. Claim your archetype. Because understanding that you burn too bright means you can learn to control the flame instead of being consumed by it. But remember, the conqueror's natural trap is suffocation. The counter-archetype that destroys you is the phantom. Someone who matches your intensity briefly, then vanishes, leaving you chasing shadows. We'll reveal that archetype last. First, let's decode the second romantic pattern, the golden chain, the enchanter. If you chose the golden chain, you are the enchanter. You don't conquer love through intensity. You enchant through sophistication, through charm, through making yourself indispensable to your partner's happiness. This is strategic romance. Your love strategy is to bind someone to you through accumulated experiences, through intertwined lives, through making them unable to imagine existing without you. The chain isn't made of one strong link. It's made of thousands of small, beautiful connections that together become unbreakable. In The Prince, Chapter 9, Machiavelli wrote about political alliances. Men are bound to you by benefits you confer upon them. The Enchanter applies this to romance. You confer benefits constantly. You make your partner's life better in 1,000 small ways. You remember their coffee order. You anticipate their needs. You introduce them to experiences they love. You integrate yourself into every aspect of their life so completely that removing you would require dismantling their entire routine. Let me tell you about Lucrezia Borgia, one of history's most misunderstood enchanters. Lucrezia was the daughter of Pope Alexander VI and sister to Cesare Borgia. She was married 3 times for political alliances. History portrays her as a victim or as a poisoner. But the truth is more sophisticated. Lucrezia was the enchanter operating at the highest level. In each marriage, she made herself indispensable not through passion, but through utility. She hosted salons that became the cultural center of each city she lived in. She patronized artists who made her husband's court the envy of Italy. She mediated disputes that made her husband's rule more stable. Her husbands started their marriages viewing her as a political obligation. They ended their marriages dependent on her for their success and happiness. When her second husband, Alfonso d'Aragona, was murdered, likely by her brother Cesare, she didn't collapse in grief. She negotiated her third marriage from a position of strength because she'd made herself too valuable to discard. This is the enchanter's power. You don't demand love. You make love necessary. But here's the trap Machiavelli identified, and this is what destroys enchanters who don't adapt. Useful love is not passionate love. When you bind someone through utility instead of desire, you create a relationship that feels more like a partnership than a romance. Your partner appreciates you. They need you. They would struggle without you. But they don't burn for you. You've become the person who makes their life work, but not the person who makes their heart race. And when someone else provides that passion, even if they provide nothing else, your partner is tempted. Because humans need more than utility. They need desire. Lucrezia Borgia discovered this herself. Despite her strategic brilliance, her third husband, Alfonso d'Este, kept mistresses openly. Why? Not because Lucrezia failed as a wife, but because she succeeded as an administrator instead of a lover. He needed her for his court, but he desired others for his bed. Here's the strategic adaptation: enchant practically, seduce unpredictably. You're brilliant at making yourself useful. Now learn to make yourself mysterious. You must maintain your practical enchantment, the 1,000 small ways you improve their life, but add unpredictable passion. If you're the enchanter, here's your adaptation. Once a month, do something completely impractical. Book a spontaneous trip. Create an elaborate surprise. Break your own patterns of usefulness with moments of pure romantic excess. Once a week, be emotionally unavailable in a small way. You're usually so attentive. Occasionally be distracted, absorbed in something that doesn't include them. Let them feel a flicker of what it would be like to lose your attention. Once a day, express desire instead of appreciation. Not, "I'm grateful for you," but "I want you." Not, "Thank you for helping me," but "You drive me crazy." Machiavelli understood this balance. In a letter about a later love affair, he wrote, "She needed me for 1,000 reasons, but she desired me because I remained partially unknowable, despite being constantly present." The most successful long-term relationships maintain this balance. The partners are useful to each other. They build life together efficiently, but they also maintain desire through strategic unpredictability. The enchanter's law: become necessary, remain desirable. If you chose the golden chain, if you felt drawn to it because you excel at weaving yourself into someone's life, then comment below, "I am the enchanter." claim your archetype. Because understanding that you enchant through utility means you can add mystery to prevent your relationship from becoming purely transactional. But remember, the enchanter's natural trap is becoming too useful to desire. The counter-archetype that destroys you is the guardian, someone who doesn't need your help, who is self-sufficient, who can't be bound by utility. Let's reveal that archetype now. The Iron Rose, the guardian. If you chose the Iron Rose, you are the guardian. You don't pursue love desperately. You don't enchant subtly. You protect love through boundaries. Your romantic strategy is simple. Build a fortress around your heart, and only let in those who prove they deserve entry. This isn't coldness. It's strategic vulnerability. You've been hurt before, maybe deeply, and you learned that indiscriminate openness leads to indiscriminate pain. So you became the guardian. You love deeply, but selectively. You give completely, but only to those who have earned it through consistency, respect, and time. In The Prince, chapter 17, Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." The guardian applies this to romance. It is better to be respected than needed, if you cannot be both. You're the person who doesn't text back immediately, who won't change plans to accommodate someone new, who maintains friendships, hobbies, identity, even while falling in love. Your partners must orbit your life. You don't orbit theirs. Let me tell you about Caterina Sforza, the most perfect embodiment of the guardian archetype in Renaissance Italy. Caterina was the Countess of Forlì. When her husband was assassinated, conspirators seized her children as hostages, demanding she surrender her fortress. Instead of surrendering, Caterina appeared on the fortress walls, lifted her skirts, and shouted to the conspirators, "I have the means to make more children!" She refused to surrender her power, even for her children's safety. The conspirators backed down. Why? Because they realized she couldn't be manipulated through emotional leverage. But here's what makes her story relevant to love. Caterina had multiple romantic relationships after her husband's death, and every man who pursued her discovered the same thing. Her love was conditional on absolute respect for her boundaries. Those who tried to control her, dominate her, or weaken her position were expelled immediately, sometimes violently. But Giovanni de' Medici, who became her long-term partner, succeeded by respecting her autonomy completely. He never asked her to choose between love and power. He never demanded she weaken her fortress. This is the guardian's strength. You cannot be manipulated through need. You cannot be controlled through emotion. You cannot be conquered through intensity. You love, but you love from a position of strength. But here's the trap Machiavelli identified, and this is what destroys guardians who don't adapt. Impenetrable boundaries prevent genuine intimacy. When you protect yourself so completely, you don't just keep out pain, you keep out connection. Your partners feel like they're always auditioning, always being tested, always kept at arm's length until they prove something you haven't clearly defined. And eventually, they stop trying. Not because they don't value you, but because perpetual testing is exhausting. You protect your heart so well that no one ever actually reaches it. Caterina Sforza died alone, not because she was unlovable, but because her boundaries became so rigid that even those who loved her couldn't penetrate them. Giovanni de' Medici, her longest partner, eventually died in battle, and she never opened her fortress gates to anyone else again. Her strength became her isolation. Here's the strategic adaptation. Guard the fortress, open the gates. Your boundaries are your power, but power without access is loneliness. You must learn to lower the drawbridge occasionally. Not for everyone, but for those who have genuinely earned entry. If you're the guardian, here's your adaptation. Identify what earning trust actually means. Write down specific behaviors that demonstrate trustworthiness. Don't make it a vague feeling. Make it measurable. Then, when someone meets those criteria, actively lower your guard. Practice small vulnerabilities. You don't have to open the fortress gates entirely, but you can open a window. Share one fear. Admit one insecurity. Let them see something beyond the walls before demanding they scale them blindly. Reward progress, not just perfection. If someone is consistently trying to understand you, respect you, meet your needs, acknowledge that. Don't keep moving the goalpost. Don't make them feel like they'll never be enough. In The Prince, Chapter 20, Machiavelli wrote about military fortresses. The best fortress is to be found in the love of the people. Applied to romance, this means the best protection isn't walls, it's choosing the right person. Your boundaries keep out the wrong people brilliantly, but make sure they let in the right people eventually, because a fortress with no entry is just a prison. The Guardian's Law. Protect yourself, permit connection. If you chose the Iron Rose, if you felt drawn to it because you value self-protection, boundaries, and earned trust, then comment below. I am the Guardian. Claim your archetype. Because understanding that you guard means you can learn to selectively open instead of permanently closing. But remember, the Guardian's trap is isolation through overprotection. The counter-archetype that defeats you is the Conqueror. Someone whose overwhelming intensity either breaks through your walls destructively or exhausts themselves trying, leaving you guilty and isolated. Now, let's reveal the most dangerous romantic archetype, the one that remains invisible until you're already captured. The mirror mask, the phantom. If you chose the mirror mask, you are the phantom. You don't conquer, enchant, or guard. You become whatever your partner needs you to be. Your romantic strategy is perfect adaptation. You reflect your partner's desires back to them so accurately that they believe you're their soulmate. This is the most dangerous archetype. Dangerous for your partners, and dangerous for you. Because the phantom creates love based on illusion. Machiavelli barely wrote about this archetype in The Prince, because it was too dangerous to describe openly. But in his personal letters, he documented meeting people, both men and women, who seemed to have no fixed personality, who became perfect mirrors of whoever they pursued. In a private letter, he wrote, I met a woman in Rome who was, with each man, exactly what that man desired. To the scholar, she became intellectual. To the soldier, she became fierce. To the merchant, she became practical. She had no nature of her own, or perhaps her nature was to have infinite natures. This is your pattern, phantom. You study your target. You identify what they want, and you become it. In modern terms, you're the person who loves hiking because they love hiking, who's interested in philosophy because they're interested in philosophy, who wants the same relationship structure because that's what they want. You're not lying exactly. You're adapting, flexing, becoming the perfect partner for this specific person, and it works brilliantly. Your partners feel understood in ways they've never experienced. You anticipate their needs, match their energy, reflect their values. They think they've found the one. Let me tell you about Giacomo Casanova, history's most famous phantom. Casanova seduced over 100 women across Europe, not through looks. He was average, not through wealth. He was perpetually broke. Through adaptive performance. In his memoirs, He describes his method explicitly. I studied each woman as a scholar studies a text. I learned her language, her desires, her fantasies, and then I became the character she had been dreaming of. With intellectual women, he discussed literature and philosophy for hours. With religious women, he spoke of God and redemption. With adventurous women, he proposed dangerous escapades. He had no fixed self, only strategic adaptations. But here's what destroyed Casanova, and this is the Phantom's inevitable trap. You cannot sustain a performance forever. Eventually, the real you, whoever that is, emerges. Or worse, you realize you've adapted so many times that you've lost the real you. Casanova died alone and poor in a Czech castle working as a librarian. His seductions became memories. His adaptations became nothing. Because when you're everyone, you're ultimately no one. Your partners fall in love with a version of you, but that version isn't sustainable. Maybe you said you love their hobby, but you actually find it boring. Eventually, your boredom shows. Maybe you matched their relationship goals, but they weren't really yours. Eventually, your resentment shows. Maybe you became their ideal partner, but you can't be that person forever. Eventually, the real you shows, and when your partner realizes they fell in love with a performance, they feel betrayed, deceived, even if you never explicitly lied. But here's the adaptation, and this is what separates phantoms who find real love from phantoms who live in perpetual performance. Mirror their desire, reveal your truth. You're brilliant at reading people, at adapting, at becoming what they need. Use that skill, but add honesty about who you actually are. If you're the phantom, here's your adaptation. Start relationships with strategic truth. Yes, mirror their interests initially. That's your strength. But within the first month, reveal something that doesn't match them perfectly. A different opinion, a contrasting preference, something authentic that might create friction. Test whether they want you or a reflection. If they reject your authentic elements immediately, you've saved yourself months of unsustainable performance. If they accept your differences, you've found someone who might love the real you. Rediscover your core identity. Write down your unchangeable traits, your actual values, your genuine interests. These are non-negotiable. You can adapt other things, but these you protect. In The Prince, chapter 18, Machiavelli wrote, "It is unnecessary for a prince to have all good qualities, but it is very necessary to appear to have them." But he also wrote in his private letters, "Endless performance exhausts the performer. Eventually, you must find someone who accepts you without the costume." The phantom's power is adaptation, but adaptation without authenticity is just slow-motion self-erasure. The phantom's law: adapt to attract, reveal to keep. If you chose the mirror mask, if you felt drawn to it because you excel at becoming what others need, then comment below, "I am the phantom." Claim your archetype. Because understanding that you adapt means you can learn to adapt strategically while maintaining your core identity. Counter-Archetype Warning. You now know your Machiavellian love archetype: the burning heart, Conqueror; the golden chain, Enchanter; the iron rose, Guardian; the mirror mask, Phantom. But here's what makes Machiavelli's system dangerous. Every love archetype has a predator archetype. The Conqueror is destroyed by the Phantom, who matches your intensity briefly, then vanishes, leaving you addicted to a ghost. The Enchanter is defeated by the Guardian, who doesn't need your usefulness and can't be bound by utility. The Guardian is broken by the Conqueror, whose overwhelming intensity either crashes through your walls destructively or exhausts themselves against them, leaving you guilty and isolated. The phantom is exposed by the enchanter, who sees through your adaptations because they're studying you as carefully as you're studying them. Understanding your archetype is step 1. Understanding your romantic vulnerability is step 2. If you are the conqueror, your power is overwhelming passion. Your weakness is creating suffocation instead of desire. Your defense: burn in waves, retreat strategically, make them miss you. If you are the enchanter, your power is binding through utility. Your weakness is becoming necessary but not desired. Your defense: maintain usefulness, add unpredictability, preserve mystery. If you are the guardian, your power is selective vulnerability. Your weakness is walls so high that no one reaches you. Your defense: define what earning trust means, then actually grant it when earned. If you are the phantom, your power is perfect adaptation. Your weakness is losing yourself in performance. Your defense: adapt initially, reveal authentically, test whether they want you. You don't have to abandon your archetype. It's who you are. But you can refine it. Make it sustainable. Turn your romantic strength into lasting love instead of repeated destruction. Comment your archetype one final time. I am the burning heart, the conqueror. I am the golden chain, the enchanter. I am the iron rose, the guardian. I am the mirror mask, the phantom. Claim your romantic pattern. Because this isn't a personality quiz. This is a strategic diagnostic for your love life. Machiavelli decoded political power to help rulers survive. I'm decoding romantic power to help you find love that lasts. Like this video and subscribe to this channel. Because in the next video, I'm revealing something even more dangerous. How to identify which archetype your partner is, and how to romance each one specifically. How to seduce the conqueror without being consumed. How to bind the enchanter without losing desire. How to breach the guardian's walls without breaking trust. How to capture the phantom before they disappear. Machiavelli didn't just teach defense. He taught offense. Until then, study your pattern, watch for your trap, and remember. In love, you're either learning how to sustain it or repeating why you lose it. Machiavelli wrote, "Love is a war in which victory requires understanding both yourself and your enemy. But the enemy isn't your partner. The enemy is your unexamined pattern. Choose wisely, love strategically." I'll see you in the next revelation.